The beeping slowed, then stopped. In a sterile operating room at Massachusetts General Hospital, a 27-year-old man named Julian Price was declared clinically dead at 3:42 p.m. His heart, ravaged by a rare autoimmune disorder, had failed beyond repair. The surgical team, drenched in sweat, stepped back in silence. His mother collapsed to her knees in the hallway. But what happened next defied every medical expectation. A whisper over the intercom. "We have approval. Proceed." Within minutes, a device never before implanted in a human outside experimental trials was wheeled into the room, an artificial heart still gleaming with condensation. Surgeons rushed back, snapping on new gloves. Outside, dark clouds loomed over the city of Boston. Inside, a mechanical hum began to rise. Tubes connected, screws locked. The artificial heart pulsed once, then again. Julian's chest rose with mechanical breath. A faint blip appeared on the monitor, then another, and another. In the observation gallery, a cardiologist whispered to herself, "We just brought someone back with a machine." Nurses stared in disbelief. Family members, still weeping, were told to wait. There was a change in status. This isn't just a story about miraculous technology. It's about what happens when a man loses his heart and finds a reason to live again. And it all started with a silence that should have meant the end. But for Julian Price, it was only the beginning. In early 2022, Boston's medical community faced a crisis wrapped in one man's failing heart. Julian Price, a graphic designer and avid cyclist, had suddenly collapsed during a ride along the Charles River. What initially appeared to be dehydration quickly escalated into multi-organ distress. Diagnosed with giant cell myocarditis, a rare and aggressive autoimmune condition, his heart function dropped to under 10% within 48 hours. Giant cell myocarditis is an inflammatory disease that strikes without warning and often proves fatal. In Julian's case, his body turned against itself, devouring heart muscle cells like a wildfire. Traditional treatments failed. Transplant lists were overwhelmed. Time was not a luxury. As doctors debated options, a parallel conversation unfolded in a secure conference room. A revolutionary total artificial heart, developed in partnership with MIT, had passed preclinical trials. But it had never been implanted in a human outside of simulation. Julian, unconscious and dying, became the center of a moral storm. His family, after hours of counsel, agreed if Julian was going to die, let him die contributing to the future of medicine. But no one expected what came next, a return, not as a miracle, but as a living, breathing proof of possibility. This story unpacks Julian's collapse, the ethical gamble, the surgical resurrection, and the profound impact it left on everyone involved, from ICU nurses to the nation's top cardiologists. Don't forget to subscribe, hit that like button, and comment below telling us what country and city you're watching from. Julian Price's life unraveled on a humid Tuesday morning. A passionate cyclist, he had left his Cambridge apartment at dawn for a 20-mile loop. Halfway through, he felt a tightness in his chest. Not pain, just pressure. He pushed on, attributing it to the summer heat. By the time he reached the Longfellow Bridge, dizziness overtook him. Witnesses described him wobbling, then dismounting and collapsing near the pedestrian lane. EMS arrived within 6 minutes. Initial vitals were erratic, low blood pressure, rapid heartbeat, shallow breathing. At the ER, doctors suspected severe dehydration or heat exhaustion. Julian's electrolytes were off, and his temperature had spiked. He was treated with IV fluids and oxygen. No one ordered a cardiac panel. No one expected a healthy young man to be suffering heart failure. That night, his condition worsened. His pulse slowed, oxygen saturation dropped, and his skin turned pale. A nurse noticed an irregular heartbeat on the monitor. A cardiologist was finally paged at 2:17 a.m. Blood tests showed elevated troponin levels, alarming signs of heart muscle damage. An echocardiogram revealed a dilated, barely functioning left ventricle. Panic set in. What they thought was a heat stroke was actually something far more sinister. Julian's mother arrived the next morning, confused and terrified. "He was fine yesterday," she whispered. But his face was gray and machines now breathed for him. He was sedated and on life support. A cardiac MRI confirmed the worst: widespread inflammation, consistent with myocarditis. An autoimmune panel returned positive for giant cells, a rare, unpredictable condition with a high mortality rate. The attending physician broke the news. "We have hours, not days. Transplant isn't an option in time. We're running out of options." In a room full of machines and silent monitors, Julian hovered between worlds. His family, blindsided by medical terminology and timelines, asked the one question that haunted the staff: what would you do if it were your son? That question echoed through the halls of Mass General, and it would force a decision no one expected to make. Over the next 12 hours, Julian's vitals crashed repeatedly. He suffered 2 cardiac arrests, both requiring defibrillation. Each time he returned weaker, paler, closer to the edge. ICU nurses began preparing his mother for the worst. One gently placed a small plastic folder on the table, paperwork no parent wants to see, consent for organ donation, end-of-life directives. His mother clutched it, unable to read. In parallel, doctors called every transplant center in the Northeast. No matches, no hearts available. The waiting list was long, and Julian's condition excluded him from priority. His deterioration was too rapid. An experimental committee was convened. In the hospital's lower wing, physicians, bioethicists, and legal counsel debated a radical option: implanting the MIT-developed artificial heart. The device had never been used in a living person, only in models and animals. Success was theoretical. Risks were astronomical. The heart could malfunction. The body could reject it. Julian might not survive the surgery. Julian's older sister, a nurse practitioner in Ohio, joined via video call. "If we do nothing, he dies," she said. "If we try, he might still die. But maybe we give the world something? Maybe we give him a chance?" The mother nodded silently. The consent form was signed. Tears smudged the ink. Surgeons began preparations. The OR was sterilized. The team briefed. The artificial heart was transported under guard from a lab 18 minutes away. Julian's condition deteriorated further. Monitors screamed, nurses flooded the room, compressions began. Code blue. His time was up. And yet, what seemed like an ending became a window. One that the surgical team would leap through, tools in hand, into the unknown. The operating room was silent but electric. Anesthesiologists maintained Julian's sedation while surgeons removed his failing heart, an organ so inflamed it crumbled at the edges. The artificial heart, codenamed Aegis 1, was cylindrical, matte gray, with synchronized pumps mimicking natural ventricular contraction. It was designed to be modular, wireless, and compatible with Julian's anatomical structure. The first incision was made at 4:08 p.m. Clamps sealed major arteries. Tubes replaced blood flow. The native heart was removed, measured, and placed in a specimen container. A nurse crossed herself. The artificial heart was placed carefully into Julian's chest cavity. Anchoring it required precision. Any misalignment could rupture an artery or compress the lungs. Lead engineer Dr. Emilia Novak stood by, monitoring internal diagnostics in real time. The device responded. Pressure stabilized. It was ready to start. "Initiate," the lead surgeon said. A button was pressed. A faint vibration passed through Julian's chest, then a pulse, then another. For 20 seconds, no one moved. Then vitals returned. Blood pressure rose. Oxygen saturation climbed. Julian's body was alive. Not fully, but mechanically. Cameras captured the moment. It was broadcast to the research team at MIT and relayed to national health bodies. A human was alive with a synthetic heart alone. The surgical team stepped back. Applause wasn't allowed, but some cried. A line had been crossed in medicine. Julian had no heartbeat, but he was back. That night, ICU nurses whispered around his bed. "He's not just alive," one said. "He's history." Julian's body didn't reject the heart. That was the first miracle. No infection, no mechanical failure. The artificial device functioned like clockwork, but recovery wasn't just physical. He awoke 36 hours later, groggy, confused. He couldn't feel a heartbeat. There was only a hum, a presence without rhythm. "Am I dead?" he asked his mother, who had not left his side. Her tears answered him first. "You were," she whispered. "But you came back." Psychologists were brought in. Patients with artificial hearts often experience derealization, identity loss, even depression. Julian described it as being alive in someone else's body. Yet, as days passed, his color returned. He regained speech, then mobility. He began sketching again, images of machines, arteries, empty chests filled with light. Nurses called him the miracle in room 407. Medical students rotated just to see him. Journalists waited outside. Dr. Novak visited often, bringing schematics and asking questions. Julian's insights, as an artist and survivor, were unexpectedly helpful to refining the next generation Aegis models. Weeks became months. Julian participated in rehab, then a televised interview. He never dramatized. "I'm not lucky," he said. "I'm borrowed time." But borrowed time gave him purpose. He launched a foundation to support myocarditis research. He gave talks. He visited ICU patients who had lost hope. And through it all, the hum inside his chest never stopped. 1 year later, Julian stood at MIT's Biotech Auditorium delivering a TED-style talk. His scar peeked through his collar. He spoke not as a patient, but as a bridge between life and innovation. "We talk about hearts, metaphorically," he said, "but I lost mine. And I learned that meaning lives not in organs, but in action." After the talk, he met a girl named Emily, a nurse who had watched his surgery livestream. They exchanged stories, then numbers, then, eventually, vows. Julian's life wasn't normal. He had to carry portable battery packs. He couldn't travel without hospital clearance. But he could live. Laugh. Love. A second surgery installed an upgrade. Aegis 2, lighter and more responsive. Julian joked, "It syncs with Bluetooth. I'm basically an app now." Medical journals published his case. He co-authored one with Dr. Novak. He became not just a survivor, but a collaborator. As he aged, his story became legend among students. Boston Miracle, they called it. But for Julian, the true miracle was not surviving, it was mattering. He never reclaimed his old life. He built a better one born from wires, metal, and grace. Every night before sleeping, he touched the pulse in his wrist and remembered the day he had none. And every morning the hum reminded him this life, however strange, was still his. Julian Price's story didn't just make history, it reshaped it. His journey from collapse to artificial resurrection illuminated the possibilities of bioengineering, but more importantly, the enduring strength of the human spirit. His was a case that made textbooks pause and humanity lean forward. Behind the medical marvels were moments of despair, love, and courage. He was never just a patient, he was proof that technology can heal more than bodies. And so, if this story touched you, inspired you, or made you wonder what's possible, don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment where you're watching from. Because next time, we'll dive into another tale where medicine meets miracle, and lives are changed forever.